It's January 2nd, 2022. I'm watching episode one. I'm sorry, 2023. I'm watching episode one of CBS Mornings. Um, and in it, it has um, this announcement, which makes sense, that in New York State, there's this, I don't know what the appropriate words are, but it's definitely at states level on birth certificates. They do not allow certain names. The first name that is never allowed for a child to be named is Jesus Christ. I mean, like, and there's 5 other states that they said, that they announced also agree with this. I mean, again, there's a Bible. It's an important document. There's layers of this that are incredibly integrated steeped in mysticism and importance at security. Um, so, especially for this area, citadel bound, of course, and state bound, and so on and so forth. So I had a man track me down once. I know he was an important man. I just don't know from where. And he may have said it, but again, geography not being my best. Like, I mean, I know some, but not nearly, unless I have a purpose in searching that particular whatever. And unless I have some form of connection. But interestingly enough, while I was at Chase, Bob, the RM, wanted me to come on a client outing with him. It was a client of his because he was at the upper level. I was more common. If we're talking House of Lords, like, just, I mean, I'm not even at that level, but like levels where there's the lords, I don't know if they're lords of Laird or they're the upper house, and then there's the lower house, lords of common. Right, yeah. So in business banking, he was the RM, so he was like the upper chamber, and I was more of the floor and the lobby of the bank, at that level of small business banking. Um, so there's that discernible difference. But he had a book of business, and invited me out, to a game, to a hockey game for the New York Rangers. And afterwards, this person wanted he and I to go eat something, an exotic cuisine I had never tried, which I think was Moroccan. Um, and while we were there, he asked me about Jesus, out of all things. And I'm like, where does that come from? And so, only time really I've ever been out and been asked about Jesus. And I was just like, again, there's this saying, like, don't talk politics and religion. But I'm like, mm, odd enough. And so really the main thing was, do you think that he really was a man, this Jesus? And my answer was yes, I do. And that was it. So, but I don't know who this man was. I don't know. And again, it happened in New York. So inside my citadel, this man came to visit, and we were in Madison Square Garden, like, just regular old people, just the two of us, like, just with Bob. And we're at the hockey game, and I don't think I brought my phone. I'm pretty sure I didn't bring my phone. But I think he took a picture. And so, and again, I'm not very good with names. Even like I remember Bob's name because Bob, I have a family member named Bob, but um, without this, I again, it's hard with me with names. And then it was something that was so foreign that I don't remember. And it was not written down. So again, I don't have that visual reinforcement. It was auditory, and I didn't have to use that name again for that evening. Um, so anyway, so that's the only time Jesus has ever come up, and I don't know who this person was, but he definitely um, knew enough to bring it up and ask me for some reason while we were inside New York City.
The air. Perfect song to kick off the air.
Let's level it up. Welcome back to CBS Mornings. It is time to bring you some of the stories that are the talk of the table this morning. Vlad, you're going to start us off.
So, you guys know, talking about baby stuff, Vlad to dad. You hadn't heard, right? I'm having a baby.
Yes.
My wife is having a baby. So, my talk of the table is about the daunting task of choosing a baby's name and how, believe it or not, your state can tell you what you can and cannot choose.
Really?
According to usbirthcertificates.com, there are 5 states that have name restrictions: Georgia, New York, Ohio, Texas, and Virginia. They mostly ban symbols or numbers in a name or limit the amount of characters, but state courts can deem names inappropriate for various reasons.
Really?
And look at the list of names that have been tried and failed.
So Jesus Christ is the number one name that is absolutely unrestricted, banned. It's Banned, not allowed. King is the next one. Queen, then Santa Claus, then the symbol, and then Nutella. And it's usbirthcertificates.com for illegal names in the United States.
They include Jesus Christ, King, which I don't know, Queen, Santa Claus, the axe symbol, and
my 4-year-old would take the nickname Nutella.
Nutella.
Just it every morning, but that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Well, really funny. But what isn't funny is the love that I keep getting from the staff here, my family at CBS.
But the thing is that if it's a special operations word, it makes total sense. It's a global word, and it's a local word, and there's things that are relatable and whatever. And it gets confusing if people try to claim that as some kind of status symbol when it has a working importance in parallel, paradox, theoretical, the practicality of theological reference, and so on and so forth. Now, at the 6 a.m. hour, they put on a commercial. They pronounce it as Lidl. No, they pronounce it as little, but it's Lidl. And then later they pronounce it as Lidl. But it says this word I've never heard before called a charcuterie. They've mentioned it. My ears perked up. I was like, that's a new word. What is that? Like buzzword? What is that? Trend? And then it was like, all right, try to remember that. But I couldn't until some repetition happened. And then I was at the Boar's Head counter because Linda needed something and she wanted me to stand on the line and order it for her. And at the bottom, while I was just standing there and minding my business in the store, I'm looking around and my eyes came upon the spelling of the word by a Boar's Head Boar's Head signs, like the signage, had this word, which I would have never been able to pronounce had I not seen the commercial. So it kind of all tied it in for me, and almost like a campaign of some sort. Not sure what it's campaigning for. Um, but in this particular broadcast and commercial, they not only mention the word, but the man explains that he thinks he hears, almost like in gossip from LIDL, that the more that they say the word charcuterie, there's some kind of royalty involved. Now, in real life, I have no idea how royalties and loyalty to royalties and brand names and all that stuff, I have no idea how that works. They have not taught us here. They never mentioned it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now, and there's been very little talk of it in a like classroom format to really bring one up to speed after I don't know what happened.
News is brought to you by Little.
Ever wonder why Lidl prices their charcuterie so low? I heard they get royalties every time someone says charcuterie.
Charcuterie?
Boom. Royalties.
Ooh, charcuterie.
Boom. Jackpot. Lidl.
Kind of was confusing at first, but now, of course, it's putting me in a state of quandary. Like, how is that relative? How is that important? And what, like, in field mechanics, what is this royalty thing that they speak of? And, like, how does that integral, like, I mean, again, clean up on aisle 7. Now, on channel 4 this morning, or no, this was on Monday, January 2nd. Is today January 3rd? No, today's January 2nd still. This morning they had on this image of like a camera, I guess maybe like a drone of some sort, going through the station, the production station at the Channel 4 news. And it goes around, and it just, the way that it's like an individual POV, but the way that they did it and the way that it's able to move around the humans in their day-to-day tasks that and busy work that they call jobs and employment and rely upon and don't want to lose, and they know their significance and impact that they have, and then it builds upon, and then there's like this crescendo of like then a production. The rest of us who sit here and only see the front piece all put together, that don't know the integral parts, don't know the industry names, don't know, like, I mean, again, unless you have, like, I don't have anybody necessarily in the business that I know how that worked. It wasn't like that was a path or a track that was offered to me for employment ever. So I'm completely blind to it. I thought that this piece was done really, really well with this like one thing just flying around, because there's so many different areas of the network and so many different pockets of office work that they've created. It also flies through like very technical rooms that would have never have been seen in this type of format. Again, being held in a series of rooms. I have one television and a remote. I don't have keyboards. I used to call it a cereal box with squares. Like, because I didn't have the word for buttons. I didn't know what a keyboard was when I had some vision or premonition. I fell asleep. I woke up and I was like screaming. I was so upset to Judy. And then I tried to draw it with crayons what my premonition was or what my vision was while I was sleeping when I was in my wakeful state in this third dimension. And I remember I had a piece of paper and I was like, it looks like a square with other tiny squares on it. I was like, gee, and she used to say, try to get something that it looks like so I could find the words for it because I was building my vocabulary. But she didn't have anything like that when I was there. It was like early 80s. And she wasn't in any kind of technical. She worked in accounting at a automotive shop. Everything was processed by hand and like carbon paper. Um, so there wasn't even a vocabulary to build on. Actually, it turns out it's Good Morning America from the New Year's Day. It was part of their special, but it takes like this little light and then it follows it through.
Want to take the portal? Morning, everybody. So no one needs to go to Chicago. Please, you're so fast. You got some books for the GMA book club. The jackpot is now out.
Can I get a dozen roses for the bachelorette?
These are perfect for the right stuff. Is there a mugshot?
Neil's here. The interview could be in person or virtual.
The mother of the victim is bookable for teen.
I'm gonna need this to be an exclusive.
Let's talk about what's going on next week. This will need a sponsorship bar, and can anyone send me the note for Chris Hemsworth?
We have the balloons. It's going to be spectacular.
I'll drop it into iNews. Forget to send it to Leland's.
Hey, I'm having an issue with the cookie
I've
segment.
got room in 10C. Ooh, these pies look delicious. Someone's in the rundown.
It's within the budget.
Heading down for shipping.
Let's talk about the show.
Did you guys see that video? Who do you want for 75?
Where do you want them live from?
Do you want a drone? Absolutely. It looks really great in here.
All right, let's do it.
We just closed the demo.
Is the graphic for our post tape ready?
Poster ready for pickup.
For the portal transition, why don't we move around this way and then push?
Sounds good.
So, from a kid who had two parents who graduated from high school in New York, I had one grandmother who, I don't know her story because she didn't really talk about it, but she had 10 kids and she grew up on welfare. And my grandfather was a serviceman but wasn't in the house. So my mother was a hairdresser straight from high school. That was it. That's what I arrived to. And Lewis struggling to find his place in New York in some respectable philanthropy position. And so I arrive and it's like, what do? Lewis is still busy doing whatever he is to try to provide. Lynn's doing hairdressing and it's like asking questions. I mean, there's no construct. I arrived to people who didn't make it themselves. How was I ever going to find the words and the vocabulary needed to get to some place to then meet a respectable man? There was some expectation of intervention. Being born House of August and son of a gun in SUN. There was no, like, the TV went on. We didn't watch much of it. The movies from the library came when we rented them in VHS tapes that then got brought back. Judy would bring it back to the store or the library or whatever. But there's like the fact of an accounting, like one office having accounting, production, words. My adults and my humans I arrived to that were, whether 10 children out of the month of August mother, my grandmother was month of August. So 10 children arrived to an American service person in the military. And then I arrive also in August, not from in August, but in August. And I wasn't even at like getting words of encouragement, role models, something, anything. There was nothing. Where do you find role models? How do you know who to research? Like, how do you build a vocab? 10 kids, and so now just a series of rooms. And then they withheld somebody special. And then there's 4 kids now that I have to try to whatever. This seems to be in New York a major problem.
I love Cattaruzza. The semi needs to back up to the stage.
Wow, this is going to be huge.
Is everyone on?
This is incredibly enlightening. It builds a construct now that I've been just around. I know there's something called an accounting department. I know there's something called a legal department, or compliance. There's the front office. There's HR. There's been finance departments. I've learned some of the words, not that any of it paid anything that I could survive off of, but I get how they've constructed it and how they're able to work within it. Just has not been extended the same to myself.
The audience arriving at 5:30 a.m. Drones are in place.
It needs to be offloaded over there.
We're loading the gear now. Yeah, it's a lot.
Really like what you did.
Is New York seeing us?
Can we get a sound check?
Guys, Keith Urban is here. Yeah, Keith Urban on the stick.
And at some point, there is this running rumor that when there are certain people blessed more than any human should ever be blessed in a lifetime, that there is such a thing as they like to do nice things for others. Not because they have to, but not because they were asked, just whatever. They call them angel investors. I don't know what happened to them, because I was in such a spot where there was definite intervention needed, but I don't know what happened. And so this gets really confusing, because how do you ever level your own people up and protect them and bring them into your wing? I know somewhere, may the force be with you, I just read, there's something, a company, then a platoon, then eventually it gets up to a wing. And then it said, may the force be with you. And I'm like, that's a Star Wars reference. And so, but I'm just, when somebody is so left out, it gets really confusing.
Now. We have to get into the production truck. Lily's ready for rehearsal.
Check transmission.
Are you still working? Just a sec.
COVID pieces are still milder than obviously they were.
Can you boost the audio on that?
What do you think of this?
Let's use that for the top.
Wanted to see if you're able to push to Amion or if you're going to be a room roll.
We need to protect this online signal. We're speeding on Jeff.
Screen it after the call. Okay, with a 1. Done. You fix that.
It's good. It just needs to be shorter.
Elena, what's going on with the ground? Is Michael practical rope? Every day we make miracles.
What about it? How was the weekend?
Breakfast is here.
Good morning. Are you ready to talk about segment?
I got the flowers for the bachelorette.
We have to move positions. Did anyone tell Travis about the change?
That cold front's making its way all the way through Florida this morning.
These aren't records, but they're very close. We're talking about below average temperature, right?
Can we hold?
Now, in this setting, it makes sense that a conversation and a way of leading and keeping a cohesive consciousness through corporate structure and corporate organization makes complete sense and holds integrity. And then if there's integrity dissidence, it's easy to root out that problem by short order. It's more difficult when that could have been a possibility, but yet when it was offered, as in Chase Bank, it was at such minimal paychecks that I couldn't even feed my kids, pay for a sitter, and pay for my mortgage, and so on and so forth, forcing me into like debt and worse positions. And as far as I sought out a mentor while I had that opportunity, but he didn't provide any answers. And he definitely did not provide the suitor that somebody fashionable, clean cut and fashionable and somewhat intelligent would be nice. Didn't happen. And so it's like all this missed opportunity, year after year after year after year, just wasted time, complete waste of time.
1221.
Coming through with the ladder.
What does everyone like?
The guest is in the dressing room.
Send me in some reinforcements. Dancing with the stars.
30 seconds to live. George on his way.
Graphics ready.
Use line 86. That should be 20 seconds.
How's Cooper?
Script is on the way.
Pete, how are we on time?
5 seconds.
How's everything looking, guys?
Shot looks good. Here we go.
3, 2, 1, roll it.
Good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
So that was an enlightening piece for someone who does not know anything about what GMA's home office looks like, or what their production studio looks like, or how their team works. It's very enlightening. I could speak to my children now, and I could let him watch the video, and I actually have enough word construct and experience to say, here's some of the things you might find interesting, to try to find his niche. I mean, I can't seem to find my own, but I now have to worry about him being on his way to something, wasting the years away, trying to get him into like a grip or a grappling hook into something, which I'm still struggling with. Not only for myself, but I feel like time's just passed me by completely. Like at this point, it's just an effing waste. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.